The email notification appeared on Natalie Emerson's phone at precisely the moment she realized her life was about to change in ways she could never have predicted. She sat in her small apartment in Portland, Oregon, staring at the acceptance letter from the graduate program at Columbia University in New York City. 26 years old, about to embark on a master's degree in urban planning, and completely unprepared for the conversation she was about to have with Quinn Oliver. They had been dating for 8 months, a relationship that had blossomed from a chance meeting at a charity auction where she had been working as an event coordinator, and he had been attending as one of the sponsors. Quinn was everything she had never expected to fall for. At 31, he ran a successful commercial real estate development company that he had built from the ground up over the past 7 years. He was confident without being arrogant, driven without being obsessed, and had a way of making her feel like the only person in the room even when they were surrounded by hundreds of people. Their relationship had been straightforward and honest from the beginning, neither of them playing games or hiding who they were. But now, staring at that acceptance letter, Natalie felt her stomach twist with anxiety. New York City was 3,000 miles away from Portland. 3,000 miles from Quinn, from the life they had been building together, from the rhythm they had found that worked so perfectly. Her phone rang, and his name appeared on the screen. "Hey," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "I can hear it in your voice," Quinn said immediately. What happened? That was another thing about him. He could read her like nobody else ever had. "I got accepted to Columbia," she said quietly. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Not long, but long enough that she felt her heart sink. "That's incredible," he finally said, and she could hear the genuine happiness in his voice mixed with something else, something that sounded like resignation. "Natalie, that's what you wanted, what you've been working toward. It's in New York," she said unnecessarily. "I know where Columbia is," he replied, a hint of gentle humor in his tone. "When do you have to decide?" 2 weeks. Another pause. "Then we should talk about this in person. Are you home?" "Yes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He was there in 18, and when she opened the door, he pulled her into a hug that felt both comforting and heartbreaking at the same time. They sat on her couch, the acceptance letter on the coffee table between them like a third presence in the room. "I don't want to be the reason you don't go," Quinn said first, his voice firm. "That's not negotiable. If you want this program, you're going." "But what about us?" Natalie asked, hating how small her voice sounded. He reached over and took her hand. "I think we can make it work. 3,000 miles isn't the end of the world. People do long-distance relationships all the time. Do they work? Some do, some don't, but I think we have something worth fighting for." He squeezed her hand. "I'm not ready to lose you, Natalie, not when we're just getting started." She looked at him, at the determined set of his jaw, at the way his dark eyes held hers with absolute certainty. Quinn Oliver was not a man who said things he didn't mean. If he said they could make it work, he genuinely believed it. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, we'll try." The next 2 months passed in a blur of preparation and bittersweet moments. Natalie accepted the offer, found a small studio apartment in Manhattan through a series of frantic video tours, and began the process of packing up her life in Portland. Quinn threw himself into work with an intensity that might have worried her if she didn't understand it was his way of coping with the impending separation. They made promises to each other. Video calls every night, visits at least once a month, alternating who would travel. Complete honesty about how they were feeling, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The night before her flight, Quinn took her to the restaurant where they had gone on their first date. It was a small Italian place in the Pearl District, intimate and warm, with candlelight that made everything feel softer. "I have something for you," he said after they had ordered, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a small, wrapped box. Natalie's heart jumped. "Quinn, if that's a ring, we need to have a very different conversation." He laughed, a real laugh that broke some of the tension. "It's not a ring, I promise. Open it." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small compass charm dangling from it. "So you can always find your way home," he said softly, "wherever home is." She felt tears prick her eyes as he fastened it around her wrist. "I love you," she said, the words feeling both enormous and insufficient. "I love you too," he replied. "And that's not going to change just because you're on the other side of the country." The flight to New York was lonely, despite being surrounded by people. Natalie stared out the window at the clouds below and wondered if she was making a huge mistake. Not about the program, she was confident in that decision, but about thinking she could maintain a relationship across such a distance. She had never been the kind of person who believed in fairy tales, but she had also never felt about anyone the way she felt about Quinn. Columbia was everything she had hoped it would be. The program was rigorous and challenging, her cohort was brilliant and passionate, and New York City itself was a living laboratory for everything she wanted to study. She threw herself into her classes and her research, finding comfort in the structure and the work. But the nights were hard. They kept their promise about video calls, and every evening at 9 o'clock New York time, 6 o'clock in Portland, they would connect and talk about their days. Quinn would tell her about deals he was working on, about the challenges of managing a growing company, about the small moments that made him think of her. She would share stories about her professors and classmates, about the overwhelming energy of the city, about how much she missed the quiet of Portland and the comfort of his presence. "There's this guy in my program, Daniel," Natalie mentioned one night about 3 weeks into the semester. "He's really smart, works in sustainable development. We got paired together for a project." She watched Quinn's face on the screen, looking for any sign of jealousy or concern, but he just nodded. "That's good. You should be making connections. That's part of why you're there." "You're not worried?" she asked, surprised. "Should I be?" "No," she said immediately. "No, of course not. I just thought you might be." "Natalie, I trust you," Quinn said simply. "If I didn't, this wouldn't work. I'm not going to be the jealous boyfriend who questions every friendship you make. That's not who I am, and that's not the relationship I want us to have." It was the right thing to say, but later that night, after they had hung up, Natalie found herself wondering if maybe he should be a little jealous. Not because she had any interest in Daniel or anyone else, but because wouldn't that show he cared? She pushed the thought away, recognizing it for what it was. Insecurity born from the distance between them. October came, and with it, Quinn's first visit to New York. Natalie met him at his hotel in Midtown, a sleek modern building where he had a room overlooking Central Park. The moment she saw him in the lobby, something inside her chest loosened. For 3 weeks, he had been a face on a screen, a voice through a speaker. Now he was real and solid and pulling her into his arms. "I missed you," he murmured against her hair. "I missed you too," she replied, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. They spent the weekend exploring the city together. Natalie showed him her campus, introduced him to some of her classmates at a coffee shop near Columbia, walked with him through Central Park as the leaves turned brilliant shades of gold and red. They ate dinner at restaurants she had discovered on her own, went to a Broadway show, wandered through the Met for hours looking at art neither of them fully understood but both appreciated. Sunday afternoon, as they sat in a small cafe in the West Village, Quinn reached across the table and took her hand. "This is working," he said. "What do you mean, us? This? The distance?" I was worried it would feel different when we were actually together again, like we had grown apart without realizing it. But it doesn't. You're still you, I'm still me, and we're still us." Natalie felt relief wash over her. "I was worried about the same thing." "So we keep going," Quinn said. "One visit at a time, one phone call at a time. We can do this." Saying goodbye at the airport was harder than she had anticipated. She had thought seeing him in person would make it easier, would recharge whatever battery powered their relationship. Instead, it made his absence more acute. She cried on the subway ride back to her apartment, not caring that other passengers were staring. November brought Natalie's turn to visit Portland. She flew in on a Wednesday night, and Quinn picked her up at the airport. The familiarity of the Pacific Northwest, even just the drive from the airport, made her realize how much she had been homesick without acknowledging it. Quinn had kept fresh flowers in his apartment waiting for her. Peonies, her favorites, even though they were out of season and must have cost a fortune. "You didn't have to do that," she said, but she was smiling. "I wanted to," he replied. That weekend, she met up with old friends, went to familiar places, slipped back into the rhythms of Portland life as if she had never left. But there was something different now, something that made her feel like a visitor in a place that used to be home. "You seem different," her best friend Caroline said over brunch on Saturday. "More polished, maybe, more New York." "Is that bad?" Natalie asked. "Not bad," Caroline said thoughtfully. "Just different. You seem happy, though. That's what matters." Was she happy? Natalie considered the question as she and Quinn walked through Powell's books that afternoon, their hands linked together as they browsed the aisles. She was happy when she was with him. She was happy in her program, engaged and challenged and growing. But she was also tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. Tired of always being in one place and wanting to be in another. Tired of living her life in split screen, divided between two coasts and two versions of herself. December was brutal. Finals at Columbia consumed her completely, and Quinn was deep in negotiations for what he called his biggest deal yet, a major development project downtown that would either make or break his company's year. Their phone calls became shorter, more distracted. They were both exhausted, both stressed, both trying to be supportive while managing their own challenges. "I don't think I can come for Christmas," Quinn said one night, his voice rough with fatigue. "I'm sorry, Natalie. This deal, it's happening right up until the last minute and I need to be here." "It's okay," she said, trying to hide her disappointment. "I understand." "Come here instead," he said suddenly. "Come to Portland for Christmas. Spend it with me." She had been planning to stay in New York, use the break to catch up on reading for next semester, but the longing in his voice made her decision easy. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll come home." The word hung in the air between them, home. Was Portland still home? Or was home wherever Quinn was? Or was it now her small studio in Manhattan with its radiator that clanged at odd hours and its view of a brick wall? Christmas in Portland was exactly what she needed. Quinn's family welcomed her warmly, his mother pulling her aside at one point to say, "I'm glad you two are making this work. I can see how much he loves you." On Christmas Eve, they drove out to the coast, just the two of them, and walked along the beach as the winter sun set over the Pacific. The wind was cold, and Natalie burrowed into her coat while Quinn wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice almost lost in the sound of the waves. "After you finish your program, have you thought about what's next?" "I have another year and a half," Natalie said. "That's a long time to plan ahead." "I know. But I want you to know that I'm willing to move to New York if that's where you want to build your career. My company, I can run it from anywhere. Most of what I do is over the phone and email anyway." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "You would leave Portland? For you?" "Yes." Quinn, your entire life is here. Your business, your family, your friends. And you're in New York, he said simply. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few months about what matters, about what I want my life to look like, and what I want is you. If that means New York, then that's where I'll be. Natalie felt her eyes fill with tears. That's possibly the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. He smiled and pulled her close. I mean it. I'm in this, Natalie, all the way in. The distance doesn't change that. If anything, it's made me more sure. The winter semester started with renewed energy. Natalie felt more grounded, more certain of their relationship, bolstered by Quinn's declaration on the beach. They fell back into their routine of nightly calls, but now there was something deeper in their conversations. They talked about the future in concrete terms. Where they might live, what kind of work she wanted to do after graduation, how his business could expand to the East Coast. In February, Quinn flew to New York for a long weekend. But this time, it wasn't just to see Natalie. He had scheduled meetings with potential business contacts, exploring the possibility of opening an East Coast office. You're serious about this, Natalie said as they walked through Chelsea after one of his meetings. Dead serious, he confirmed. I told you I'm all in. And honestly, the more I look into it, the more sense it makes for the business anyway. We've been talking about expansion for years. Why not New York? Because it's a huge risk. Starting the company was a huge risk. Every deal I've done has been a risk. This is just another calculated risk, and the potential payoff is worth it. March brought an unexpected complication. Natalie's program announced a summer internship opportunity with a prestigious urban planning firm in Boston. It was competitive, prestigious, and exactly the kind of experience that could launch her career. But it also meant another city, another separation, another layer of complexity added to their already complicated situation. You have to apply, Quinn said immediately when she told him. But Boston, that's not even New York, that's another city entirely. So, it's temporary, it's for your career, and it's an incredible opportunity. You apply, and if you get it, we figure it out. We're always figuring it out, Natalie said, frustration creeping into her voice. When do we get to just be together? There was a long pause on the video call. Quinn's face was serious, and she could see him choosing his words carefully. After you graduate, he said finally. After you finish your program, after you've taken advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, then we get to be together full time. But right now, this is your time to build your career, and I'm not going to be the person who stands in the way of that, even if it means more distance. She applied for the internship. She got it. When she called Quinn to tell him, she was simultaneously elated and heartbroken. That's amazing, he said, his enthusiasm sounding forced. I'm so proud of you. You don't sound happy. I'm happy for you. I'm less happy about losing my summer in New York with you. But that's my problem, not yours. It's our problem, Natalie corrected. That's what being in a relationship means. Okay, then it's our problem and we'll solve it together. I'll visit you in Boston. You'll come to Portland. We'll make it work the same way we've been making it work. April arrived with an unexpected development on Quinn's end. The East Coast expansion he had been exploring suddenly accelerated when a major opportunity presented itself in Philadelphia. A development deal that was too good to pass up, that required his physical presence on site for at least 3 months starting in June. So you'll be on the East Coast? Natalie asked, trying to process this information. In Philadelphia, yeah. It's not Boston, but it's a hell of a lot closer than Portland. 2 hours by train. That's actually close, she said, feeling hope bloom in her chest for the first time in months. Close enough for weekends, Quinn agreed. Close enough to feel almost normal. The end of her first year at Columbia arrived with a flurry of final projects and exams. Natalie was exhausted but exhilarated. She had survived a year of graduate school while maintaining a long-distance relationship. That had to count for something. Quinn flew in for the weekend after her finals were done, and they celebrated with dinner at her rooftop restaurant in Brooklyn. "I have something to tell you," he said as they looked out over the Manhattan skyline. Natalie's heart jumped. "What is it?" "The Philadelphia deal. It's going really well, better than I expected, and I've been talking with some investors about potentially establishing a permanent East Coast headquarters there." "That's incredible, Quinn. It means I'd be splitting my time between Portland and Philadelphia, probably spending about half the year on each coast, which means we'd actually get to see each other regularly. That's the idea." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I told you I'd figure it out. I told you the distance wouldn't beat us." Her summer internship in Boston was intense and rewarding. She worked on projects ranging from waterfront development to affordable housing initiatives, learning from some of the best minds in the field. And true to their word, she and Quinn found a rhythm that actually worked. He would take the train up from Philadelphia on Friday afternoons, and they would spend weekends exploring Boston together. Or she would take the train down to Philadelphia, and he would show her what he was working on, introduce her to his team, make her feel like a real part of his life and not just someone who existed on a screen. One Saturday in July, as they walked along the Charles River, Quinn said something that surprised her. "I like this better." "Like what better?" "This. The distance, but manageable distance. I feel like I know you better now than I did when we were in the same city." Natalie considered this. "What do you mean?" "When we were both in Portland, it was easy. We'd see each other whenever we wanted. We didn't have to try that hard. But now, every conversation matters. Every visit is intentional. We actually talk about things, about how we're feeling, about what we want. I think the distance has forced us to communicate in ways we might not have otherwise." She realized he was right. Their phone calls weren't just casual check-ins anymore. They were deep conversations about hopes and fears, about challenges and triumphs, about the small, everyday moments that made up a life. They had learned to be vulnerable with each other in ways that might have taken years under normal circumstances. "I think you're right," she said slowly. "I think the distance has made us closer." August brought her back to New York for her second year at Columbia, but now Quinn was only 2 hours away instead of 3,000 miles. They fell into a new routine where he would come to New York every other weekend, and she would go to Philadelphia on the alternating weeks. It wasn't perfect, but it felt sustainable in a way the cross-country distance never had. Her second year of graduate school was even more demanding than the first, but Natalie felt more equipped to handle it. She had proven to herself that she could do this, could manage a challenging academic program and a relationship, could build a life that encompassed both her ambitions and her heart. In October, Quinn's Philadelphia office officially opened. He invited Natalie to the opening event, and she took the train down on a Thursday afternoon, missing a class for the first time all semester. The office was impressive. A renovated historic building in Center City with exposed brick and modern finishes. Quinn's team had grown significantly, and watching him give a speech to the assembled staff and investors, Natalie felt a surge of pride. This was the man she loved, confident and capable, building something real and lasting. Later that night, alone in his Philadelphia apartment, he pulled her onto the couch and wrapped his arms around her. "Thank you for being here," he said. "This felt important and I wanted you to be part of it." "I wouldn't have missed it," she replied. "I'm so proud of you, Quinn. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. You're brilliant at what you do." I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to do this without you, he clarified. Knowing you were out there, knowing we were working towards something together, that's what made the risk feel worth taking. November brought an unexpected challenge. Natalie's grandmother, who lived in Seattle, fell ill. Not critically, but enough that Natalie felt compelled to fly out and spend some time with her. It meant missing classes, falling behind on work, adding stress to an already stressful semester. Quinn didn't hesitate. Go, he said. Family is important. I'll be here when you get back. She spent a week in Seattle, sitting by her grandmother's bedside, talking with her parents, reconnecting with family members she hadn't seen in years. And every night, Quinn called just to check in, just to let her hear his voice and know that someone was thinking about her. You're going to be okay, her grandmother said one afternoon. She was recovering well, getting her strength back. I know, Natalie said. The doctors said you're doing great. I meant you and that young man of yours. Your mother told me about him, about how you've been managing the distance. We're making it work, her grandmother smiled. The good ones are worth the effort. Your grandfather and we spent the first 2 years of our marriage apart while he was overseas. Hardest thing we ever did. But it taught us how to really talk to each other, how to be partners. Don't underestimate what you're learning right now. By December, Natalie and Quinn had been doing long distance for over a year. When people asked how they made it work, Natalie found herself giving the same answer: communication, trust, and a shared vision of the future. They spent Christmas in Portland again, and this time, Quinn's family felt less like his family and more like their family. His sister pulled Natalie aside and said, "You're good for him, you know. He's different since he met you. More grounded, more focused on what really matters." "He's good for me too," Natalie replied. New Year's Eve found them back in New York. Quinn had flown in to spend the holiday with her, and they went to a party thrown by one of her classmates in a cramped apartment in the East Village. As midnight approached, they squeezed onto the fire escape, looking out over the city lights. "It's a new year," Quinn said as the countdown began around them. "New year, same us," Natalie replied. "Is that what you want, same us?" She looked at him, confused. "Of course. Why would you ask that?" The countdown reached 0, and the sounds of celebration erupted around them. Quinn pulled her close and kissed her, deep and sure and full of promise. "Just making sure," he said when they broke apart, "because I plan on spending many more New Years exactly like this." Spring semester brought new challenges and new opportunities. Natalie was selected to work on a major research project with one of her professors, a study on sustainable urban development that would take her to several cities along the East Coast. It meant travel, which meant even more complexity in scheduling time with Quinn. But somehow, they made it work. He would fly to meet her in Washington, D.C. when her research took her there. She would route through Philadelphia whenever possible. They learned to be flexible, to take advantage of every hour they could get together, to not take their time for granted. In March, on a rainy afternoon in Philadelphia, Quinn sat her down in his apartment with a serious expression. "We need to talk about next year," he said. Natalie's stomach dropped. Those were never good words. "Okay, you graduate in May of next year. That's a little over a year from now, and I think we need to start making concrete plans for what happens after. I thought we agreed I'd probably look for work in New York or Philadelphia." "I know, and that's still the plan. But I want to make sure we're on the same page about everything, about what we want our life to look like." "What do you want it to look like?" Natalie asked. Quinn took her hand. "I want us in the same city. I want to wake up next to you more than 2 days a week. I want to build a life together that doesn't require train schedules and flight bookings. I want the distance to finally be over." "I want that too," she said softly. "So much. Good. Then let's make a plan." You start applying for jobs in the fall. I'll continue building up the Philadelphia office so it can run without me being there all the time. And when you graduate, we close this chapter and start the next one together. Together, Natalie repeated. That sounds perfect. April brought cherry blossoms and the 1.5-year mark of their long-distance relationship. They celebrated with a weekend in New York, walking through Central Park among the blooming trees. "You remember when I first visited?" Quinn asked. "Last October when we walked through here and I was so relieved that we still felt like us." "I remember. I was terrified we had grown apart without realizing it." "I can't imagine growing apart from you now," he said. "I feel like I know you better than I know anyone." "Same," Natalie agreed. All those hours on the phone, all those conversations, it adds up. "I was talking to my business partner last week," Quinn said, "telling him about us, about how we've made the long-distance thing work, and he said something interesting. He said sometimes the best relationships are the ones that are hard-won, that require effort and sacrifice, because those are the ones where both people are truly committed." "He's right," Natalie said. "Anyone can have a relationship when it's easy, but this, what we've done, this takes real love." May arrived with final exams for Natalie's second year. She was exhausted, stretched thin, ready for summer break. Quinn could sense it in their phone calls, in the way her voice dragged with fatigue. "Come to Portland for a week after your exams," he said. "I'll take some time off. We'll do nothing but sleep and eat good food and remember why we're doing all of this." She flew out the day after her last final, and Quinn picked her up at the airport with flowers and a smile that made everything feel better. That week in Portland was a balm for her weary soul. They hiked in the gorge, visited Saturday market, ate at food carts, spent lazy mornings in bed talking about nothing important. It was the most relaxed Natalie had felt in months. "I needed this," she said one evening as they sat on his balcony watching the sunset. "I needed to remember what it feels like to just be with you without worrying about the next deadline or the next goodbye." "One more year," Quinn reminded her. "One more year of the distance, and then we get to have this all the time. Promise. I promise." Her final summer before graduation was spent interning with an urban planning firm in New York, working on projects that would look impressive on her resume, when she started applying for jobs in the fall. Quinn continued splitting his time between Portland and Philadelphia, but he made sure to be in New York or Philadelphia at least 2 weekends a month in July. They took a real vacation together, their first since the relationship had gone long distance. 5 days in Charleston, South Carolina, exploring the historic city, eating incredible food, staying in a charming bed and breakfast in the French Quarter. It was the longest they had spent together in nearly 2 years, and it felt simultaneously wonderful and slightly strange. "We're out of practice at this," Natalie said on the third day as they walked along the Battery, "at being together for more than a weekend." "I was thinking the same thing," Quinn admitted, "but I like it. I like remembering that you're an actual person and not just a face on a screen." "Thanks, I think," he laughed. "You know what I mean. When we're doing long distance, it's easy to build up these perfect versions of each other in our heads. But being together like this, seeing you first thing in the morning, watching you get annoyed when the restaurant gets your order wrong, that's the real stuff. That's what I'm looking forward to having all the time." September brought the start of her final year at Columbia. Natalie could hardly believe she was beginning her last 2 semesters, that the end was actually in sight. She started working with the Career Services office, updating her resume, beginning to think seriously about what kind of job she wanted. "How do you feel about Philadelphia?" she asked Quinn one night. "What do you mean?" "I mean as a place to live, to build a life." "I love it," he said. It's got the energy of a big city, but it's more manageable than New York. Why? I've been thinking about where to focus my job search. New York is the obvious choice, but it's also incredibly expensive and overwhelming. Philadelphia is closer to your business, and there are some really interesting urban planning initiatives happening there. Natalie, you don't have to make your career decisions based on my business. I'm not, she said. I'm making them based on our relationship. There's a difference. Okay, Quinn said slowly. Then yes, I would love it if you looked at opportunities in Philadelphia, but only if that's what you actually want. I want to be where you are, she said simply. Everything else is negotiable. October brought interviews. Natalie had applications out to firms in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston, covering her bases. The interview process was grueling, requiring her to take time away from classes, to prepare presentations and portfolios, to be constantly ready to sell herself and her skills. Quinn was her rock through all of it. He helped her practice for interviews, listened to her presentations over video call, talked her down when she was convinced she had bombed an interview only to receive a call back the next day. In November, she got her first job offer. A good firm in Boston, decent salary, interesting work. She called Quinn immediately. That's great, he said, but she could hear the hesitation in his voice. But it's Boston, she said. But it's Boston, he agreed. What are you going to do? I don't know. I asked for a week to consider. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple of places in Philadelphia. Don't turn down a sure thing for a maybe, Quinn advised. If Philadelphia doesn't come through, Boston is still on the East Coast, still manageable. I'm so tired of manageable, Natalie said, frustration bleeding into her voice. I want easy. I want to come home to you at the end of the day without having to book a train ticket first. Soon, he promised. One way or another soon. 2 days later, she got the call she had been waiting for. A prestigious urban planning firm in Philadelphia wanted to offer her a position as a junior planner, starting after her graduation in May. The salary was better than the Boston offer, and the work aligned perfectly with her interests and skills. Yes, she said before the caller had even finished outlining the details. Yes, I accept. She called Quinn while walking across Columbia's campus, barely able to contain her excitement. I got it, she said as soon as he answered. The Philadelphia job, I got it. She heard him exhale. Natalie, that's incredible. We're going to be in the same city, she said, the reality of it hitting her. After 2.5 years, we're finally going to be in the same city. I might cry, Quinn said, and he sounded like he meant it. Please don't. You'll make me cry, and I'm standing in the middle of campus. They spent the next hour on the phone, making plans, talking about apartments they could look at, discussing what their life would look like when she moved to Philadelphia in May. December felt different knowing it was one of their last few months of distance. Natalie threw herself into her final semester preparation, determined to finish strong. Quinn ramped up his Philadelphia operations even more, preparing for her arrival. They spent Christmas together in Portland again, and this time Quinn's mother pulled Natalie aside in the kitchen. He's going to ask you to marry him, she said quietly. I don't know when, but I know my son. The way he looks at you, the way he talks about the future. That's a man who knows what he wants. Natalie felt her heart race. Did he say something? He didn't have to. A mother knows. She smiled warmly. And for what it's worth, I think you two are perfect for each other. You've proven that love can survive anything. The final semester flew by in a blur of classes and thesis work. Natalie's research project culminated in a presentation to her department, and she invited Quinn to attend via video call. Watching his face on her phone screen as she presented felt fitting, a full circle moment from all those months of video calls. You were brilliant, he said afterward. "I'm so proud of you." "I couldn't have done any of this without you," she replied. "Knowing you were there, believing in me, it made all the difference." March brought apartment hunting. Natalie took the train to Philadelphia every weekend, and she and Quinn looked at places together. They settled on a 2-bedroom in a great neighborhood, walking distance to her new office and a reasonable commute to his. 2 bedrooms, she had questioned. "One for us, one for a home office," Quinn explained. "You'll need space to work, and I work from home sometimes. It makes sense." "We're really doing this," Natalie said, standing in the empty living room of the apartment that would soon be theirs. "We really are," Quinn confirmed, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "No more distance. No more train schedules, just us, building a life together." April was bittersweet. Natalie's time at Columbia was coming to an end, and while she was ready to graduate, ready to start her career and her life with Quinn, she also felt nostalgic for the experience. She had grown so much in 2 years, had become someone she was proud of. Quinn came to New York for her graduation in mid-May. Her parents flew in from Seattle, and his parents came from Portland, and they all had dinner together the night before the ceremony. Watching their families interact, seeing how well everyone got along, Natalie felt overwhelmed with gratitude. The graduation ceremony itself was long and formal, but when they called her name and she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she searched the crowd until she found Quinn. He was standing, applauding, a huge smile on his face. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything they had been through felt worth it. After the ceremony, after the pictures and the congratulations and the celebration dinner, Quinn walked her back to her apartment one last time. Boxes were already packed, ready to be moved to Philadelphia the next week. "We made it," he said, standing in her nearly empty studio. 2.5 years of long distance, and we actually made it. "I never doubted us," Natalie said. "Liar." But he was smiling. "We both had doubts. But we didn't let them win." "No," she agreed. "We didn't." He pulled her close. "I love you, Natalie Emerson. I loved you when you were 3,000 miles away, and I love you now, and I'm going to love you when we're finally living in the same city." "I love you too," she whispered against his chest. The move to Philadelphia happened over Memorial Day weekend. Quinn had already moved most of his things into their new apartment, and Natalie's belongings from her New York studio fit easily into his car. By Sunday evening, they were unpacked enough to sit on their new couch in their new living room in their new shared home. "This is weird," Natalie said. "Good weird or bad weird?" "Good weird. Very good weird. I keep expecting you to have to leave, to have to catch a train or a flight." "But you're just here." "I'm just here," Quinn confirmed. "And I'm going to be here tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that." Natalie started her new job the following Tuesday. Coming home that evening to find Quinn cooking dinner in their kitchen felt surreal. They ate together at their dining table, talking about their days like a normal couple. No video call, no screen between them, just 2 people sharing space and conversation. The first month of living together was an adjustment. They had to learn each other's habits and rhythms in ways the long-distance relationship had never required. Quinn learned that Natalie needed quiet time in the morning before she was ready to talk. Natalie discovered that Quinn liked to work late into the evening but would always stop for dinner. They navigated sharing a bathroom, splitting chores, deciding what to watch on TV, but they also had moments of pure joy. Falling asleep next to each other every night, waking up together every morning, spontaneous decisions to go out for dinner or stay in and cook. Weekend mornings spent reading the paper and drinking coffee without the pressure of an impending departure. "I like this," Natalie said one Saturday morning in July as they lay in bed, sunlight streaming through the windows. I really, really like this. Same, Quinn said, pulling her closer. Though I have to say, I miss our phone calls a little bit, she laughed. You miss our phone calls, not the distance, obviously, but there was something about those conversations, the way we would really talk to each other every single day. I don't want us to lose that now that we're together. We won't, Natalie promised. We worked too hard to build that communication to let it go now. August brought their second anniversary. 2 years since they had decided to try long distance. 2 years of calls and visits and missing each other and making it work. Quinn made reservations at the best restaurant in Philadelphia, and Natalie bought a new dress for the occasion. Over dessert, Quinn reached across the table and took her hand. I have something I want to say, he began. Natalie's heart started racing. This felt significant. These past 2 years have been the hardest and the best years of my life, Quinn continued. Hard because being apart from you was torture. Best because you pushed me to be better, to build something bigger, to think beyond just the next deal. You made me want to be the kind of man who deserved you. Quinn, she started, but he gently squeezed her hand. Let me finish. I know we've only been living together for 2 months. I know the conventional wisdom is to wait longer, to make sure we can actually handle being in the same city after all that time apart. But here's the thing, I don't need more time. I've had 2.5 years to know exactly how I feel about you and exactly what I want our future to look like. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Natalie felt tears spring to her eyes. Natalie Emerson, you are the smartest, strongest, most incredible woman I've ever met. You took a chance on long distance when every logical part of your brain probably said not to. You built an amazing career while maintaining a relationship that required more effort than most people are willing to give. You make me laugh, you challenge me, you make me want to be better. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring. Will you marry me? Yes, Natalie said immediately, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course yes. Quinn stood and came around the table, sliding the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a kiss. The other diners in the restaurant applauded, but Natalie barely noticed. All she could focus on was Quinn, the man she loved, the man she had fought distance and doubt and exhaustion to be with. Later that night, back in their apartment, wrapped in each other's arms, Quinn said, "You know what the craziest part is?" "What?" "I honestly think the distance made this stronger. Made us stronger. If we had just been a normal couple in the same city, I don't know if we would have built the kind of foundation we have. The distance forced us to really know each other, to communicate, to be intentional about everything." "So you're saying you're glad we did long distance?" Natalie teased. "Hell no. I hated every minute of being away from you, but I'm grateful for what it taught us, for how it shaped us." Natalie looked down at the ring on her finger, then back up at Quinn. "I'm grateful, too, for all of it. For you being willing to try something that seemed impossible, for both of us being stubborn enough to make it work." They started planning the wedding that fall. A spring ceremony, they decided, in Portland, since that was where they had met and where Quinn's family still lived. Nothing too big, just their families and closest friends. Work consumed them both through the winter. Natalie was thriving at her new job, working on projects that excited and challenged her. Quinn was in the process of closing the biggest deal of his career, a massive mixed-use development that would transform an entire neighborhood. They were busy, sometimes exhausted, but always together, and that made all the difference. The wedding took place on a perfect May afternoon at a small venue overlooking the Willamette River. Natalie wore a simple, elegant dress, and Quinn looked impossibly handsome in his suit. As they stood before their family and friends, exchanging vows, Natalie thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. "I promise to always communicate with you," Quinn said during his vows. To never take our time together for granted. To remember that distance once separated us, and to never let anything come between us again. I promise to keep choosing you, Natalie said through happy tears. To keep choosing us, no matter how hard things get. To remember that we've already survived the impossible, which means we can handle anything. The reception was joyful and intimate. Caroline, Natalie's best friend, gave a toast about how worried she had been when Natalie first told her about trying long distance. I thought she was crazy, Caroline admitted. 3,000 miles. That seemed impossible. But watching these two over the past 3 years, seeing how they made it work, it restored my faith in love. They proved that distance is just a number when you find the right person. Quinn's business partner spoke too, telling a story about how Quinn had once canceled an important meeting to catch an earlier flight to New York. He said, and I quote, "I'm not missing Friday night dinner with Natalie for anything, not even $1 million deal." That's when I knew he was serious about her. Quinn doesn't miss meetings for anyone, except, apparently, for the woman he loves. As the evening wound down and they prepared to leave for their honeymoon to Italy, Quinn pulled Natalie onto the dance floor one last time. "So," he said as they swayed to the music, "what do you think? Was it worth it?" "Every minute," Natalie replied without hesitation. "Every phone call, every goodbye, every night falling asleep alone and wishing you were there. All of it was worth it to get to this moment." "Good answer," Quinn said, kissing her softly. "Because I was thinking we should probably start planning for the next chapter." "What next chapter?" "The one where we buy a house. Maybe start thinking about kids in a year or two. Build the life we've been talking about for so long." Natalie smiled. "I like that chapter already." "Me too," Quinn said. "Though I have to warn you, after spending 2.5 years perfecting long-distance communication, I'm going to be really annoying about always talking about our feelings and being intentional about our relationship." I wouldn't have it any other way. 2 years later, Natalie sat on the porch of the house they had bought in a quiet Philadelphia neighborhood, watching Quinn push their daughter on the swing set he had installed in the backyard. Emma was 18 months old, all dark curls in her father's eyes, laughing with pure joy as Quinn pushed her higher. Natalie's hand rested on her stomach, where their second child was growing. They hadn't told Emma yet, wanted to wait a bit longer, but Quinn knew and was thrilled. He caught her eye and walked over, Emma on his hip. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting next to her. "I was thinking about that first night when I told you I got into Colombia," Natalie said, "when we decided to try long distance even though everyone thought we were crazy." "Best decision we ever made," Quinn said. "Second best," Natalie corrected, gesturing to Emma and her stomach. "Fair point." He leaned over and kissed her. "But you know what? I still think the distance was important. It taught us how to really be partners, how to communicate, how to support each other's dreams even when it's hard." "We use those skills every day," Natalie agreed. "Just yesterday, when you had that crisis at work and I had that deadline, we didn't just push through separately. We talked, we figured it out together, we supported each other." "Exactly." Quinn shifted Emma to his other hip. "The distance brought us closer in ways I don't think would have happened otherwise. It forced us to build something real and solid and strong." Emma squirmed to get down and they watched as she toddled back toward the swing set. "You ever miss it?" Natalie asked. "The intensity of those phone calls, the anticipation of visits." "Sometimes," Quinn admitted. "But then, I remember that I get to wake up next to you every morning, and I get to come home to you every night, and I get to be here for every moment of our kids' lives. That's better than any phone call, no matter how good the conversation." Natalie leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Quinn Oliver." "I love you too, Natalie Oliver," he replied, using her married name. "Thank you for taking a chance on long distance. Thank you for believing we could make it work. Thank you for being worth the effort," she said softly. They sat there together, watching their daughter play, thinking about their growing family and their shared future. The distance that had once separated them felt like a lifetime ago, but the lessons they had learned, the strength they had built, remained. They had proven that love could survive anything, even 3,000 miles, and in doing so, they had built something unbreakable. That evening, after Emma was in bed, they sat together on the couch, Quinn's arm around Natalie's shoulders. "I was talking to my dad the other day," Quinn said, "telling him how well things are going with the business, about the baby, about the house. And he said something that stuck with me." "What did he say?" "He said that the mark of a good relationship isn't whether you fight or whether things are always easy. It's whether you can survive the hard times and come out stronger on the other side." "We definitely did that," Natalie said. "We did. And now, whenever we face something difficult, I think back to those years of long distance. I think about how we managed phone calls across time zones and made train schedules work and never gave up on each other. And I think, if we survived that, we can survive anything." Natalie turned to look at him. "You're right. The distance was hard, maybe the hardest thing we've done. But it gave us this incredible foundation. It taught us that we're a team, that will fight for each other, that we're committed no matter what. Plus," Quinn added with a smile, "it makes for a pretty good story to tell Emma when she's older. About how Mom and Dad made it work even when everyone said it was impossible. She'll probably think we're crazy. Maybe. But hopefully she'll also learn that if you really love someone, you find a way to make it work. Distance, timing, circumstances, none of that matters as much as choosing each other every single day." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of silence that only comes from years of knowing someone deeply. Then Natalie said, "You know what I'm most grateful for?" "What?" "That we didn't give up. That first night when I told you about Colombia, we could have just called it quits. Long distance is hard, and we were still relatively new in our relationship. It would have been understandable to just say goodbye." "That never even crossed my mind," Quinn said. "From the moment I met you at that charity auction, I knew you were special. I wasn't going to let you go just because of some miles between us." "Some miles," Natalie repeated with a laugh. 3,000 miles. Details." He kissed the top of her head. "The point is, we chose each other. We kept choosing each other, day after day, phone call after phone call, visit after visit. And now we get to keep choosing each other for the rest of our lives, but without the distance." "Best of both worlds," Natalie agreed. "The strength we built from being apart and the joy of being together." Later that night, as they lay in bed, Quinn's hand resting on Natalie's stomach where their second child grew, he said one more thing. "Thank you for New York. For following your dreams even when it meant leaving me behind. You could have stayed in Portland, played it safe, and we could have had an easier time of it. But you went after what you wanted, and that inspired me to expand the business, to take risks, to become better. We both grew during those years apart." "I think that's the secret," Natalie said sleepily. "The distance didn't just test our relationship. It made us both into better versions of ourselves. And now, we get to be those better versions together." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that they had built something lasting. The distance was behind them now, just a chapter in their story, but the lessons remained. Communication, trust, commitment, choosing each other daily, these were the things that truly mattered. Years later, when friends would ask how they made their relationship work, how they had survived 2.5 years of long distance and come out stronger, they would give the same answer. They talked, really talked, every single day. They trusted each other completely. They supported each other's dreams even when it was inconvenient. They never took their time together for granted. And most importantly, they had decided from the very beginning that distance would not defeat them, that their love was worth fighting for. And it had been. Every difficult moment, every tearful goodbye, every morning waking up alone, all of it had been worth it. Because the distance had brought them closer in ways they never could have imagined. It had forced them to truly know each other, to build a foundation of communication and trust that would sustain them through decades of marriage and children and life's inevitable challenges. The long-distance relationship that everyone thought would fail had instead become the bedrock of their success. It had taught them how to be partners in the truest sense of the word. And as they built their life together in Philadelphia, with their growing family and their thriving careers, they carried those lessons with them every single day. Quinn Oliver and Natalie Oliver, formerly separated by 3,000 miles, now separated by nothing at all, living proof that true love could survive anything. That sometimes the distance between two people, rather than pulling them apart, could actually bring them closer together.